they're in the valley or while they're at whatever location in the province that it is. And there are occasions, Mr. Chairman, when we negotiate the accommodations that are made available to teachers that are brought in for consultation. That part of the negotiation would include the hotel providing meeting rooms that are made available to us. And the honourable member references all of the facilities that exist within various government departments. The honourable member knows that those facilities are in fact booked by department personnel and they're used on an ongoing basis. And he knows that there are logistic problems with respect to moving people about the city in order to get to meetings that would be in Service Nova Scotia in the morning, and he would have us at the Department of Labour in the afternoon, and over at the Department of Transportation and Public Works in the evening. And that's the kind of arrangements that he would make, and those arrangements aren't acceptable. But Mr. Chairman, it's interesting to hear his views and how he would operate things and what it is that he would be prepared to do for the teachers of this province by way of consultation.
The member for Cape Breton West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have you ever heard of such condescending hogwash? He knows full well that his predecessor was the minister in 1999, 2000, 2001, 2002, for him to play babblegaff, knowing full well that the supplement that's here was her supplement, the supplement for the year before was hers, the year before that was hers, and the year before that was hers. So for him to try and pretend that he had nothing to do with it and she had nothing to do with it is misleading this House, this committee, Mr. Chairman. And I take great exception to the fact that he would downplay and downgrade the importance of this government spending almost $344,000 on hotel bills, because this government, who made a commitment to reduce the cost on expenditure on hotel rentals across this province, is now increasing the cost. And for him to suggest that perhaps we would like to set up in pup tents, or he would like to know what our plan for managing, Mr. Chairman, I could, if he wants to examine the detail on the last department that I managed, I come in 10% under budget. And that's because his caucus, who was on this side of the floor at that time, that's what they wanted. That's what they wanted, that's what they got. For that minister to sit there with that type of neoconservative, condescending attitude, you know, patronizing the people of Nova Scotia as if they're doing us a big favor by explaining why they spend more instead of less. Shouldn't there be more money going into the classroom instead of hotel rooms? I think that's a fair question. When the government, the minister, is cutting back in programs, cutting back in the number of teachers in this province, talking about taking away the heart and the soul of school boards in this province by suggesting that curriculum and busing, transportation, facilities and transportation should be taken away from the school boards, and legislation will be introduced in the year 2004. What a coincidence, after the election. And the minister makes a suggestion that indeed, all I had to do is look at the Financial Measures Act of 2 years ago. Yes, Mr. Speaker, his colleague, the Minister of Finance, set the stage to go in and surreptitiously remove the power and authority and the independence of these boards. But the minister won't say that. He won't be clear enough as to what the plan is. They're having their cabinet deliberations. They're having their buck-passing scenarios. Oh, yes, that was a letter from his predecessor, gone to the Straight Board, which, by the way, was sent to all school boards. Be very clear. The government, this minister, this department, the Premier, the Minister of Finance, they would not undertake this proposal unless they felt that they were going to save money. How are they going to save money? They're going to reduce staffing levels at the various school boards across this province because they feel they can do it better in downtown Halifax at the Trademark Building. Mr. Chairman? What about in your constituency and all the other constituencies across this province when the question of renewing contracts for busing and they start talking about contracting out? What about the cleaning staff? What about the support staff? What about the teachers' aides? Mr. Chairman, if they think for 1 minute that the people of Nova Scotia are not going to catch on to what this government is planning after the next election, heavens forbid if they should ever get elected, they're going to slash and they're going to gut school boards across this province. He's hinted to it last Friday. He's hinted at that through the letter that his predecessor, the Honourable Jane Purvis, wrote to the school boards only weeks before she left the department. Only weeks. What a coincidence, Mr. Chairman. What a coincidence. And yes, Mr. Chairman, the same issue that the previous CEO of the Halifax Regional School Board addressed before Public Accounts. And you yourself, Mr. Chairman, you were a member of Public Accounts at the time, when he publicly conceded that discussions were ongoing between himself, other CEOs in the province of school boards, and the Deputy Minister on the issue of transfer of transportation and facilities. Now, why would the province even bother? What's to be gained? You know, what's broken? What's broken at the school boards? Yes, the minister and the government and a lot of stakeholders in this province have raised concerns about what happened at the Strait Regional Board. And there is a process to deal with that. And I respect that and I understand that. And there are a number of outstanding issues which I believe that the government did take some good corrective measures on. But does that justify stripping all the boards right across this province? Mr. Chairman, when you go back to your constituency or any other Tory backbencher in rural Nova Scotia, go back to their constituencies, are they going to explain to the teachers, to the parents, to the students, to the teachers' aides, to the cleaning staff, to the support staff, to the busing, the bus drivers, to the maintenance staff in the garages and so on? How are they going to explain? How are you and your colleagues going to explain to the people in rural Nova Scotia how this government wants to centralize educational services in downtown Halifax? I mean, the writing is on the wall, Mr. Chairman. You know, and the minister has a nice smile about him, and he can be a very pleasant individual at times, not too often during budgets, but, you know, he has waxed a lot of eloquence here today, Mr. Chairman. But what's happening and what's contemplated is what the people of Nova Scotia really don't know. And that's what concerns me, Mr. Chairman. The Minister of Education has not been, in my view, as forthright on this issue as he could have been. He suggested, when I raised the issue about transportation and facilities, that's only one of a number of scenarios, okay? If that's only one of a number of scenarios, what are the other scenarios? How much money will the Department of Education save? How much money will the Department of Finance save? How much money will be derived by this takeover of the school boards in the province? The minister himself, during estimates the other day, indicated that he was very much in favor of the boards being focused on curriculum, on education. Well, Mr. Chairman, the contracts for teachers are now negotiated by the province. Okay? So that major issue, I mean, the school boards in the final analysis with no responsibility for busing, and there are a lot of issues, Mr. Chairman, that are important on this issue in rural Nova Scotia. What about all these roads in rural Nova Scotia where the bus can't go on the dirt roads because of icing conditions and so on? You know, what's going to happen? There's no safety mechanism there whereby school board representatives or the CEOs or the manager of transportation can call the Department of Transportation and say, we got to get this road sanded or whatever, or else these students aren't going to school. If the government controls the whole thing, very systematically they can say, oh, that's being handled by that department and we'll get back to you a little later today. Well, a little later today doesn't really come all the time. It'll come tomorrow. You know, if they're trying to find ways to cut back on the sand and the salting of the roads, What a great way if they have control of all that. What a great way if they want to contract out on the busing. It's very easy, Mr. Chairman. Very easy, Mr. Chairman. This is a major, major issue. And yet they'll fine $344,000 for hotel bills? Give us a break. And the minister would suggest that our plan would be to set up pup tents? I mean, is that the level of debate that this minister would like to take it to?
Order, please. Order, please. Order, please. Very difficult to hear in committee here. Just wonder if honorable members would turn down those. Order, please. Order, please. Now, thank you, honorable members. The honorable member for Cape Breton West has until 8:24.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this proposed takeover of the school boards that the minister has alluded to the other day has major, major implications. Major implications. Let's just look at the busing situation that I was focused on. What happens if the province takes over busing? The question is, how will that improve education in our schools at the local level? The minister hasn't explained that. Staff from the Department of Education has not explained that. I mean, how will that save the department money to be able to put more resources into the classroom? I think there are legitimate concerns. If the government is using this budget as a platform or a blueprint to move to the next level, and it was the Minister of Education, Mr. Chairman, by the way, who introduced this into the discussion on Thursday past by asking us to refer to the Financial Measures Act of 1999 that the Minister of Finance introduced, where I'm not sure what section it was, perhaps 76, or it was towards the back. The Minister of Finance, I'm sure, would be able to point to it, where all these agencies, boards, and commissions, and any other school boards, municipalities, are all at the ministers, at the stroke of a pen, would have to go onto the same provincial computer systems, management systems, as the province. And so he introduced this into the discussion. So that's fine. If that's the benchmark, he's effectively confirmed what Mr. David Reid indicated. He indicated back when he was before Public Accounts 2 years ago. So the plan is there. Obviously, it's a financial consideration. The government feels that they're going to be able to save millions of dollars. They haven't said that. Okay? So on this issue of busing, now, what about all the service graduates, Mr. Chairman? Are we going to have the same staffing levels at the local level? Or are they going to be transferred over to perhaps Transportation and Public Works? You know, to be operated by the provincial complement. What will that mean in staffing levels, Mr. Chairman? Go back and ask the school bus drivers in Colchester, Musquodoboit Valley. Mr. Chairman, these are legitimate concerns. What about the teachers' aides? What about the cleaning staff in the various schools? We saw what happened in the Halifax Regional School Board during that very unpleasant strike several years ago, what the Department of Education sat back and quietly said and did nothing, while Mr. Reid tried to steer the board towards contracting out vital services, and the implications of that were profound. And what happened in the end? Things got settled down, and Mr. Reid is now back in Ontario. With all due respect, perhaps that's where he should have stayed, Mr. Chairman, because there was considerable consternation that was brought upon this school board in Halifax and this province because of his high-handed approach to dealing with educational matters at the Halifax Regional School Board. And I didn't see too many tears shed for Mr. Reid when he left. But at least he told us when he appeared before Public Accounts what was being contemplated by the Department of Education. That there was a planned takeover. of these major issues. So, Mr. Chairman, it'll be interesting to see how the Tory backbenchers and all members of the Tory caucus will go back to their ridings and explain to the stakeholders in the various school boards what in fact they're planning on doing with this dramatic shift of public policy. Not only that, Mr. Chairman, you take, for example, the Cape Breton Victoria District School Board. You know, the maintenance and the cleaning staff. What will happen there? Is the government contemplating on contracting out that as well once this piece of legislation is introduced in 2004, in the spring of 2004, if by any chance it were to be elected? And I think in absence of all the information, anything is possible. Because let's not forget, Mr. Chairman, it was the Premier and this government that says we have to adopt the Rumsfeld plan. Control and manage information systems, and our stakeholders. In other words, only give them what we need them to know to make them happy with us. Mr. Chairman, and that's what the government is trying to do in this case. They're trying to gloss over what the real agenda is. Now, it'll be interesting to see Department of Education officials go back to the school boards. Go back to the school boards and meet with not just the CEOs of the boards, but meet with the various representatives, labor components, whether it be the cleaning staff, whether it be the busing staff, whether it be the mechanics in the garages, whether it be those in maintenance, you know, that do the general repair of these facilities. Mr. Chairman, the government has a $500 million deficit on deferred maintenance. How are they going to deal with that? The question is, they have not explained how they're going to deal with that. They said, oh, well, let's get rid of P3 because that's not working. Okay, well, let's go with that. I don't necessarily agree. I agree that there were problems in the process, but let's go with that. Okay, so what are you going to do? What are you going to do with that $500 million deferred maintenance? Where are you going to get the money? Are you going to continue to grow the debt? Is that what you're going to do? Continue to borrow $100 to $150 million a year and then say you're not going to put another cent on the debt? That's what you're doing. I mean, you can't have it both ways. Or, Mr. Chairman, are they going to start slashing and burning at the school board level? Are they going to have reduction in cleaning staff? Are they going to contract that out? Are they going to contract the busing services out? Are they going to contract the janitorial services? The bus maintenance, the mechanics? The building maintenance crews. Are they going to contract all that out? Are they going to find it a lot easier, once the election is over and contracts have expired, that they'll go back and say to the teachers, now, see, we negotiate contracts now. And see, we'll have another 3 or 4 years. We don't care if we get some bad press or not the first couple of years. So what we're going to tell you is, look, you're in school A, we're going to ship you over to school B 20 miles away. This is the way this type of heavy-handed attitude becomes a reality with this type of mindset. So the minister can make, mocking comments about setting up in pup tents and what's our plan, but the reality is, Mr. Chairman, he hasn't outlined what his plan is. He hasn't outlined his plan for the $500 million deferred maintenance. He hasn't outlined his plan for school capital construction. Mr. Chairman, it's only after considerable prodding that we got the information on what the school board's priorities were. And what about this proposed legislation in 2004? What is it? That's one of many options, the minister says. Bus, transportation and facilities. What does that really mean? I mean, he says school boards should only be concerned with education, curriculum. Well, by golly, let's be realistic. We've gone through a lot of different forms of osmosis at the school board level over the years. We had, we had the elected, the local district school boards. Then we went to the regional school boards where we had 1/3 appointed by the provincial government, 1/3 by the municipal, 1/3 elected. Then we went to fully elected school boards. Now we have the fully elected school boards with the Department of Education having one spotter in each department effectively behind the scenes trying to steer the agenda. We saw that just with the Halifax Regional School Board on establishing the capital school construction program. And tell me there isn't politics in that?
They sent their men there. They sent their people there.
Well, their minions are there. And they can use whatever terminology they want, Mr. Chairman. But where's it going? Where's it going? If they have such a crystal clear plan, in the Tory Blue Book, Mr. Chairman, they indicated that they would have a plan for capital school construction. Where is it? We may be a month or less, or maybe a couple months from an election. That's 4 years ago. Where's the plan? At least Tattoo on Fantasy Island knew what his plan was. I mean, come on, where's the meat? There's no plan for deferred maintenance. There's no plan for capital construction. There's no plan as to how they're going to deal with facilities and transportation. There's no plan to tell the stakeholders of this province what the minister and his staff are contemplating for the parents, the teachers, most importantly the students, the school board officials, the staff at the local levels. Mr. Chairman, we have these PTOs and home and school groups in these communities all across Nova Scotia. Very, very important. We'll just give you an example. Several weeks ago, if it wasn't for the parent-teachers organizations or the parents' organizations, the band program, the music program at the Halifax Regional School Board could very well have been in jeopardy. But you know what happened? They were a vested stakeholder that had an opportunity to participate in the process. We have no guarantee that that type of opportunity will be available anymore. Everything will now be controlled down at the Trademark Building and the Eiffel Tower, because there are certain stakeholders within the Department of Education feel that the top-down effect. Where's all the consultation? Where's this open and accountable government, Mr. Chairman? Where is it? Why aren't they giving it to us? Why is it 4 years into the mandate and the minister is talking about pup tents? Is that all the minister can talk about, is pup tents? While they're wasting money on hotel bills, and they won't tell us what their plan is for deferred maintenance. They won't tell us what their capital construction priority listing is, or their plan. Mr. Chairman, I think that's wrong, and I think it's most unfair to the students. It's most unfair to the students, because this is all part of the Rumsfeld plan. Keep them in the dark, only give them the information that we want them to know so that they'll feel good about us. That's how we manage our stakeholders. It's streamline the information. This is not CENTCOM, that we're dealing with. This is the government of Nova Scotia. This is the people of Nova Scotia. These are the taxpayers who deserve an answer. They are the stakeholders. They and their children and their children's children, Mr. Chairman. And for the minister to stand up and make kind of mocking remarks about the fact that it wasn't his budget or it wasn't his predecessor's budget from the previous year, as if, it didn't matter, and then start referring to opposition, suggesting that they would set up pup tents. Now, how ridiculous. I mean, we're at this level of debate in a $5 billion a year budget, and he drags it down to that level? I think that's disgraceful. I think it's absolutely disgraceful. We need to know what the Department of Education is planning for these school boards over the next fiscal year and beyond. If the minister can talk about the plan for capital construction after 2005 plus, surely to heavens he can tell us what the plan is for the school boards. Mr. Chairman, I realize the time for
That is correct.
estimates has expired, so I'll look forward to continuing this rather lively debate with the minister at a future date.
Time for estimates in turn has expired, but now we'll look towards the NDP caucus, and we'll recognize. Oh, Minister wants to respond. Yes, Minister. Apologize.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I don't think it would be fair to the committee for me to sit idly by and not pass some comment on the diatribe to which we've all been exposed. And the simple question is, Mr. Chairman, I find it hard to know precisely where to begin. But let me begin with the issue of governance and the situation as it presents itself to this government and the situation experienced by school boards within the province. There are two very important factors that relate to the issue of governance, which have been left for this board or this government to address. And the first is that we had a situation within one of our school boards where there were questionable expenditures to the point where we were able to lay claim to $500,000 in insurance money. Okay? Now, who set up the school board structure that allowed that situation to develop? I ask you, Mr. Chairman. The people responsible for creating that structure of governance were the previous government. The honourable member who just took his seat was a member of that government. And he, Mr. Speaker, must be accountable to the people of this province for putting in place a governance structure that would allow that situation to develop within the school board. So he can accept responsibility for that. Are we taking steps to deal with the issue of governance? We certainly are, Mr. Chairman, because we have to take those steps based on what we inherited as a government. The second reason we must address the issue of governance is because the Auditor General, in his comments, came forward and said that over time related to when those members were in office, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, and time that passed under a governance structure created by that previous government, that governance structure allowed a situation to develop in this province where there was a very serious deficiency with respect to the maintenance of our buildings. We were left to deal with that problem, and we are dealing with it, Mr. Chairman. We will address the issue of governance in this province, and I can relate to members of the committee a conversation that I had this morning with the chair and members of the Chignecto Central School Board, when I indicated to that board that they should not look forward to any significant change in the governance structure other than for us to find ways in which they can become more efficient with respect to the expenditure of funds and become more accountable with respect to the expenditure of funds, because they did not put in place a system of accountability that worked. So we indicated to that board that we would be doing that as we move forward, Mr. Chairman. We secondly indicated to the Chignecto Central Board this morning, and I relay this to all school boards and to the people of this province, that indeed the challenge presented to us by the Auditor General is a challenge that we intend to meet. And that challenge specifically focuses on the issue of maintenance of our schools in this province. That challenge did not enter into the realm of transportation. And I was quite clear with the Chignecto Central Board this morning, as I was on Thursday afternoon with media on Cape Breton Island, that we have absolutely no intention of moving into the transportation business. That is something that school boards are adequately equipped to deal with. The optimum size of a transportation system indeed is within the size of school boards, and indeed with some boards they have more than one transportation system. Now, the honourable member made reference to the contracting out of services. Well, the system that he created allowed many boards to contract out services of various kinds. And the P3 program, which he is so willing to defend, Mr. Chairman, has in it provisions where much of the maintenance and the operations of the schools are subjects of contracting out. Nothing new in that, because they created a situation where that would be permitted to take place and permitted to happen. So for him to be standing in this place and posing these as some sort of ominous, threatening questions, I believe, Mr. Chairman, is really to mislead. Well, not mislead is a strong word that the chair does not care for me to use, nor do I care to use it. But it does create an impression that perhaps is not worthy of being created by the honourable member with respect to his intentions and the intentions of his party. Now, what is interesting is to listen to the extent to which the honourable member defends the P3 process when his leader has in fact dismissed the process and says it is not something that he is prepared to accept and prepared to go along with. It's indeed unfortunate, Mr. Chairman, that the leader of his party did not take him up on the offer to run in his seat on Cape Breton Island, because had he taken him up on that offer, then the conflict of opinion and the conflict of policies that confront them as a result of the leader having opinions different than that, the honourable member could have been avoided. And of course, the leader of their party could have been here in the House in order to be able to defend his own actions and answer defend his own policies within the House. So, Mr. Chairman, those are comments that I would like to make with respect to the issue of governance. We were faced with a situation where we had to correct some very serious deficiencies relative to governance as a result of the structure created by that government when they were in office. And we also inherited a situation with respect to deferred maintenance on our schools and our buildings that require our attention. We are providing attention to those matters, Mr. Chairman, and we will be working with school boards in arriving at answers to those particular questions. Now, the honourable member spent a considerable amount of time suggesting that somehow the expenditures that he referenced got higher in the 2001-2002 fiscal year. The fact of the matter is that those expenditures actually reduced from 2001-2002 from what they were in 2000-2001. 2000 and 2001, the total expenditure was $357,658, and the expenditure in the fiscal year referenced by the honourable member was $302,937.82. A reduction, Mr. Chairman, of $57,000, and that is very significant. But what is very interesting, Mr. Chairman, is to listen to the honourable member and his suggestion that somehow we shouldn't be bringing teachers forward to consultation. You can always tell when he doesn't like the point you're getting at, because his mouth becomes uncontrollable and his tongue wags freely, which is what's happening now, Mr. Chairman. He's across the way, and he's not going to like the references that I make. But at any rate, he would suggest that we should not have a provincial apprenticeship board meeting because we shouldn't be spending money on hotels. So he would suggest, now I don't know if he wants to offer a barn to the apprenticeship board members. Now you had your turn, sit down.
Well, no, excuse me. Thank you, Minister. He is raising on a point of order, I hope.
Yes.
A member from K Britain West.
I won't go with the disrespectful attitude of the minister, but rather just to deal with the specifics. And that is, I would ask the chair to observe, and he will find at no point in time that I ever suggest that I did not want the apprenticeship committee to meet.
Thank you for your comment, Minister. You have the floor.
Well, all right. So that then, Mr. Chairman, is an expenditure of $2,739.96 that he would have approved of. Then perhaps he's objecting to an expenditure of $918.88 for Canadian History Workshop. Because is that what he's saying to the committee, that that workshop should not be held for Canadian history? Or is he saying that rehab staff?
Order, please. 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 The minister has the floor. Minister.
Or is he suggesting that the rehab staff's travel expenses of $782 should not have been paid? Or perhaps this is the number that he objects to, Mr. Chairman: $8,801.86 for the active young readers planning sessions. Is that what it is that he objects to? Now, we've already indicated that he doesn't want the apprenticeship board to go, but he's made no comment about the rest, so I can only assume he didn't want those sessions to take place. The Black Young Learners Reading Strategy Workshop, $4,120.77. The Workplace Health and Safety Workshop, $4,004.
Excuse me, Minister. I'd like to recognize the member from K Britain West. I hope on a point of order.
I will make the accusation. This minister is deliberately misleading the committee, but suggesting...
Order, please. Order, please. Order, please. Order. Member. Order, please. Member, I'm going to ask you to take your seat until I speak. It's not a point of order, but your comments are very disrespectful, and I'm going to ask you to apologize for the phrase of using misleading in the committee, and you know well.
No, Mr. Chairman, I'd rather leave than listen to this type of buffoonism.
Member, I'll ask you to take... Thank you. Member, I'm sorry that he didn't apologize, but he is leaving the chamber, and you have the floor, sir. So that... It's been accomplished, Minister. Order. Order, please. Order. Or just 1 second, Minister. Order, please. Order, please. Order, please. The chair did not kick the member out. He offered to leave. He offered to leave. Thank you. Order, please. The minister has the floor.
Well, I can't reference the... Mr. Chairman,
Minister, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I'm unable to reference the presence or absence of an honourable member, but it is unfortunate that he will not be able to hear some of the other matters in which the money has been spent, because I would have been very interested to receive his guidance. I received guidance on one item that he suggested that the apprenticeship board should in fact meet, but I wanted to know whether he thought that the Young Black Learners Reading Strategy Workshop should not have been held, or the Workplace Health and Safety Workshop should not have been held. The Junior High Math Committee meeting and chemistry meetings, perhaps he could indicate to us whether they should or should not have been held. The Cooperative Discipline Workshop, is that something that he would not have sponsored or supported by way of expenditure? The school board directors program meetings, is that something that he would have deleted as an expenditure? Or the junior high network project meetings? Or the education renewal and Southwest pilot team meetings? Is that something that he would not have gone? This one, I believe he would support the apprenticeship board meeting of $674 he would be prepared to support. a construction working meeting relative to the construction of schools, or the Nova Scotia Community College and Industry Review Training and EDCO interviews, $292. Is that something that he would not be prepared to support? Perhaps well, I found another item that he's prepared to accept, the apprenticeship board meetings.
Order, please. Minister, order, please. Minister, you have the floor. I'm just quieting the chamber down for you, Minister.
I suppose I could go on, Mr. Chairman. Hopefully I've made my point that the expenditures are indeed worthy expenditures. They are needed in order for us to continue to have the support and the input and the advice of our teachers, and to have our teachers involved in the development of programs and the implementation of programs, have our teachers involved in the development of examinations and materials and curriculum. And to do that, we do have to be prepared to spend money to accommodate those teachers wherever it happens to be in the province. And Mr. Chairman, I make no apology for that. We do spend the money wisely, and we take every step possible in order to ensure that we get best value for money in all of those circumstances. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Minister, for your comments. At this time, I'd like to recognize the NDP caucus. They have 1 hour in turn, and the member from Hants East has the floor. Member, just to remind you that 9:05, it'll be time for the estimates this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I thank the minister for an opportunity to ask a few questions. He would know, I think, perhaps wouldn't, but that I used to be a teacher for 15 years prior to coming to the House, and have spent the last 5 years trying to educate members on the opposite side of the House. And
you'd think that the minister would know something about education at school.
So I have a number of concerns, and one thing that really worries me, I have to say, is concerns that have been brought to me by a couple of my constituents, and it has to do with the inability, I think, to access tuition agreements or to come up with tuition agreements with the school board. Now, I wrote your predecessor on this issue, and I'll read a section of that letter. With regard to tuition agreements, only school boards receive formula funding, and no other person or organization has legal entitlement to these funds. While school boards may enter into agreements, including tuition agreements, for services and benefits, boards firstly follow policies and procedures of both the Department of Education and their own boards to ensure that all efforts are made to meet a student's needs for learning within their board. What I've been finding, I think, Minister, is there are severe deficiencies, I think, and especially in the area of special needs children. And to use an example of a child that the parents came to me with concerns, and this is a child, I think, presently at a grade 8 level in school, but reading at about a grade 5 level or a grade 4 level. And we met with staff of the school board and the school in this regard, and they were going to put together a program, a personal program for this child. And one of the questions I asked was, how will you know if this program is not working? And nobody could give me an answer. So I want to tell the minister that I think that boards are falling down in this area as far as trying to meet the special needs of children in schools. I think the problem is probably quite severe. I know personally I have run into 3 situations in this regard, and I don't see And I'm assuming that it's not a lack of willpower on part of the board. It may be a lack of funding, but they certainly, if they're the ones who have to enter into a tuition agreement and they have to fund a program that's outside the school, and if this is on the basis, I believe, that if the board cannot establish a program to meet the needs of the child, then they would agree to have the child go outside the school and they would pay for the program. Well, since it's their funding, it's pretty hard to make them admit that they can't meet the needs of the child. And I see that I think there are many children who are falling through the cracks in this system. And matter of fact, I think we're widening the cracks. And I'm wondering what the minister's position is in regards to implementing the recommendations for the Special Education Implementation Review Committee, and also whether this issue has been raised in his constituency or in his department, and what their position is around tuition agreements. Because to me, I think the schools are incapable of meeting the needs of all the students. And I think that basically what we're saying, we're throwing our hands up and saying, well, there are just some that we're going to just keep pushing them forward and they'll become somebody else's problem, another school's problem or whatever. And I think this is blatantly unfair to these children. So I'd like to know what the minister's response to that is.
Thank you for the question, member, and I'll direct that to the Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the honourable member for the question. And he raises an issue which is of considerable significance for some of our students. And I'm sure the honourable member's experience was similar to my own in the classroom when we had with us students who we felt were just not living up to their potential. And in my time in the classroom, that very often was as good as we could express it, that they were not living up to their potential. And we were very frustrated, as were the parents, as was the child, in terms of trying to come to an understanding of why they were not able to live up to their potential. We have made considerable progress with respect to being able to sort of drill down and find out some of the answers to the reasons why. And the answers that we're getting, of course, are ahead of our capacity to be able to respond to many of these situations. That is not to say that we are not now working at the response, and we're doing two things. We're doing much more by way of diagnostic activities in order to assist us in coming to a better understanding of the concerns and the problems faced by children. And we are also committing considerable resources in order to be able to address those concerns. We still have considerable progress to make in that regard. We will continue with respect to making that progress. Now, the specific question to which the honourable member refers is a matter that we are working with, and we have currently a committee in place which is due to bring forward some recommendations to myself relative to this specific question, and they are working on behalf of the department and the superintendents and the board. So we are addressing it. I would love to be in a position to tell the honourable member that we have the answer today. We continue to search for an answer with respect to that particular question as well as others. Currently, the legislation is such that the school boards have the authority to take the money which is provided by the province for the students and they have the authority with respect to making decisions as to how that money is spent. And it's my understanding there's only one board in the province that currently enters into tuition agreements, and that is the current situation as I understand it. But we continue to look at this matter with a view to making progress with respect to addressing it.
Thank you, Minister. I recognize the member from Hants East.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister. I'm not sure if you came within a country mile of answering my question. I think you were around it, and I don't see this as a situation where students are not living up to their potential. I think their potential is far greater. I think they're living up to all they can do. I think they're doing all that they possibly can do under the circumstances that they find themselves in. And they have developed strategies on their own over years of lack of resources to address their needs, to try to appear to be accommodated in the classroom. There's so much information that we know about how to meet their needs. And this is no longer rocket science, and we are not falling down on the diagnostic area. The minister is right that as far as our ability to determine what the problems are with children, I think we're pretty much there. But certainly we're farther along on the diagnostic side than we are on the remedial side. As far as implementation of programs and resources to address what we diagnose, we're not even in the ballpark. And I see a variety or a number of issues. I mean, we have this process, I think it's fairly openly acknowledged, of continuous passing. That children are not kept back, that's one thing, and probably difficult to do with large class sizes, etc. But they're not given the time to really learn what they need at a particular level before they're passed on. And then we don't have the remedial services to try to address the areas that they're lacking in. I'd like the minister to tell me, if he can tell me, about the committee that he said he had in place that's looking at this, because I'm assuming it's not the Implementation Review Committee on Special Education. I think that report has already come forward some time ago. I think it has recommendations. I think it's already been priced at what our dollar value, somewhere in the $20 million range. So I'm curious about the committee that the minister just mentioned in his response, to tell me what the makeup of the committee is and when he expects a response from this committee.
Thank you for the question. Direct that to the Minister of Education. Minister.
Thank the honourable member for the question. The committee is composed of two superintendents and the director of executive director of public schools. So it's a group of three that are currently doing the work. I want to make clear, Mr. Chairman, that when I use the expression living up to potential, I was speaking about our expectations of their potential and not the students' expectation of their potential. And I agree 100% with the comments made by the honourable member.
Thank you, Minister. Recognize the member from Hants East.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to thank the minister. And I wonder if the minister could tell me what is the role of the executive director of public schools? What's that person do?
Thank you for the question. The Minister of Education.
The executive director of deals with all facets our responsibilities relative to the P-12 program within the province. He, for instance, and it's his responsibility to ensure that the curriculum as prescribed by the province is in fact being carried out within the public schools. He has responsibilities with respect to negotiations, in all facets related to the operation of our public schools. The regional education officers would report to him, and they, of course, work with the school boards with respect to the implementation of our programs. It's really quite a wide-ranging element of responsibility. I'm trying to provide an answer that perhaps describes the scope of the operation without providing a long, detailed list. And I'd be happy to do that if it's required.
The member from Hants East.
Thank you, Minister. No, I don't think that's required. What I'm trying to get at is some idea for me about this committee. And you mentioned 2 superintendents and the executive director of public schools. So I guess I'm looking, if you can explain to me what the mandate of the committee is, what their time frame is, like when you expect to hear from them, and what aspects of this problem they're actually looking at.
The Minister of Education.
The problem that's being considered is the question that the honourable member raises, the question of tuition agreements, as to how they might be viewed. Is there a different way of viewing them? Is there some way of having them implemented? The time frame is June, when we would expect to hear from them with respect to the work that they're doing. And after that, Mr. Chairman, obviously dependent upon what is said by the committee, we would want to carefully weigh their recommendations and consider what action would be taken after that. We can't predict just what it is that they're going to say, and when they do come forward, then we will be moving to the next step with respect to this question.
Thank you, Minister. Recognize the member from Hants East.
So we'll hear from them before the next election.
The Minister of Education.
I would anticipate that we would, but there are 2 variables in that. One is the variable as to when they in fact finish their work, and the other is the variable as to the decision-making process of the honourable member who normally occupies the seat to my left.
The member from Hants East.
Good dodge. I want to go to an area that I'm not sure gets enough attention. I have real concerns around the change when we went to the community college system and the implementation of vocational programs prior to that, when we went from vocational schools to community colleges. My experience in school would have been one where students in grade 8, grade 9 would have gone to vocational school, usually in Truro for my area, and finished the academic side of their schooling at vocational, but also took a trade at the same time. And I think that when the switchover, which I think was about January of, I forget which year, 97, 98 or whatever, but within well, actually at that time, a number of our students who were not grade 12 students wound up coming back from the vocational system back into the secondary school system. And then within 3 months or so, they were gone. Now these individuals were not going to finish high school on the regular path. that most students would. To do that in a complementary way with a vocational training program was actually a way for them to finish their schooling and to get a trade. Presently, and there seems to be a big uptake actually in vocational schools. I mean, we still don't have enough seats, but there's a real lack of skilled workers out there in the workforce, Mr. Minister. And a friend of mine actually who went through that program that I just mentioned actually took carpentry, has become an extremely successful businessman in my area. And he told me that on most jobs that he deals with now, he can't find skilled workers under 40 years of age. So I see this as a real problem. We're going to run into a real skills shortage, and I don't see that anybody is moving aggressively to address it. And I think that there's a potential for a lot of people who would go the vocational route, but having to be accepted with a grade 12 has just closed the doors on them. So I wonder if the minister could address this and tell me what his thoughts in this regard are, if he's experienced this as well.
Thank you for the question. Direct that to the Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I thank the honourable member for his question and the subject matter that he raises. And obviously, this is not the first time that I've heard that sentiment expressed since I've become Minister of Education, or indeed in times prior to becoming Minister of Education. And the question is always whether the pendulum has swung too far or not. And I believe that it's probably an appropriate time for us within the department to pose that question. However, one of the things that we need to be very careful with respect to programs that we offer to our students is that we don't, at too early a stage, present them with options that preclude future decisions. And that, I believe, requires a delicate balance in terms of providing the exposure to the kinds of programs that the honourable member is referring to, and of being able to ensure that students carry on with the basics of their education far enough that they are able to have open to them alternatives beyond the specific vocational training that they might want to pursue, because in the world in which we now live, skills are important, but the changing nature of those skills is such that we have to have the academic background to be able to progress from one area to another. And indeed, our whole skills agenda is intended to address the question of skills. And one of the components of the apprenticeship legislation, which is currently before the House, is to provide candidates with the opportunity to upgrade their academic skills so that they can proceed with apprenticeship training. So we need to be very careful that in anything that we bring forward, we don't have students making decisions with respect to their future that would have them be precluded from future endeavors because they didn't proceed far enough with their academic opportunities. So, as I said at the outset, I've heard from enough people that I believe it's perhaps appropriate for us to sit down and look just at where we are here. But I do have some very serious concerns that we not embark upon programs that would limit the capacity of students to develop the level of academic skills that they need to be able to survive in our world.
I'd like to recognize the member from Hants East with a minute and a half, member.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister. And I want to say I appreciate the Minister's answer, because I think, I'd like the Minister to go down the road, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So all I'm saying is there is a certain section of the student body that, for probably a variety of reasons, is not going to go down the academic stream road. And if it's possible to do that and leave some doors open, or have them come back and open a door, I think that would be a great way to do it. So if the Minister can somehow manage some flexibility in the system for that, what I'm seeing, and the Minister talked about the word options, but what I'm seeing is very few options for these students. I see doors closing behind them because of their inability to even get to the trade level, So if the Minister can come up with something that works, I'd be fairly receptive to seeing what that could be, and because I think, everybody's different, and we try to compartmentalize everybody, and I'll continue this
Thank you,
tomorrow.
thank you, member. Time has expired for this evening's estimates. I would like to recognize at this time the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that that your committee do now rise, report considerable progress, and beg leave to sit again on a future date.
Agreed.
Chairman of the Committee of the Whole House and Supply reports.
Committee has met, made progress, begs leave to sit again.
Agreed? The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, would you please call the order of business public bills for second reading?
Public bills for second reading.
Mr. Speaker, would you please call Bill number 36, the Financial Measures 2003 Act?
Bill number 36, the Financial Measures 2003 Act. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to move second reading of the Financial Measures Act. And for those who aren't aware of it, the Financial Measures Act is an act which permits the government to implement the budget. And usually there are numerous amendments that are included in that bill. And this one is no exception. And Mr. Speaker, it's a comprehensive piece of legislation. Many of these changes were included in the budget that I tabled on April the 3rd. And it's a major piece of legislation that gives the authority, once again, as I stated, to implement the budget. Chief amongst those measures, obviously, Mr. Speaker, is the changes to the Income Tax Act. Nova Scotians are aware that we've indicated as part of a 4-year plan that we would give tax relief in year 4. That's where we find ourselves. And Nova Scotians will be seeing some of that tax relief this summer. And they will also be seeing some of the permanent changes to the Income Tax Act, which will take effect on January the 1st, 2004. Mr. Speaker, with these changes that we've tabled, Nova Scotians will know that our government is true to its word, as tax relief will be delivered, as John Hamm indicated in his platform. Now, Mr. Speaker, we're doing that not just because we want to be true to our word, but because we also believe that it's the right thing to do for our economy. It's the right thing to do to ensure that our economy continues to grow. And over the last 3 years, we have done well in Nova Scotia, and we've exceeded year over year the projections by the private forecasters as how Nova Scotia's economy will do. And one of the reasons is that we've diversified our economy. I've said it in previous occasions that that I've looked over the last about 10 years, and Nova Scotia's economy is different than it is before. Many of our traditional industries are still there, but they don't play as much of a dominant role in Nova Scotia as they did in the past. So you look at the city, you look at HRM, but you look even within 60 or 80 miles of it, and you see many new corporations that are involved both in high tech and in the HRM area. There's a lot of the life sciences industries which are doing very well. And the fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, that is one of the reasons that Nova Scotia is, our government is bringing forward tax relief in this budget. We believe that it's important that Nova Scotia remain competitive. All 10 provinces in Canada over the last 4 years had brought lowered income taxes, all except one, Mr. Speaker. And that one province is Nova Scotia. So what are we doing today with this, as we debate this bill? We're ensuring that Nova Scotia will remain competitive, and that is the thrust of why we're doing this. Now, those on the other side, and I'll quote especially the Liberal Party, that say that they don't agree with it, and that they will roll back these changes and they will increase taxes to Nova Scotia, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, the fact of the matter is they will defend their decisions, and they will go to the people and explain that they don't feel that comfortable with the economy and they don't really care whether the economy continues to grow. The fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, that we do. And in this act, we will be finding Nova Scotians will see their tax reduction in the form of in two formats. The first format, Mr. Speaker, is in the payment of $155 for every Nova Scotian who paid income taxes for the years of 2001, 2002, and 2003. Now, Mr. Speaker, that $155 basically represents half of a full year's tax cut, divided by the number of taxpayers in Nova Scotia. And, Mr. Speaker, that part of it is even. It is divided amongst all Nova Scotians, and everyone will receive the same amount. Now, the second part of this tax reduction, Mr. Speaker, will come in the form of changes to the Income Tax Act. And on that side, Mr. Speaker, that will be determined, the amount that people will receive in a tax reduction will be determined by their income. Our income tax system is a system that continues to grow over, the more you make, the more you pay, and everyone knows that, Mr. Speaker. So those who will be making more will pay it. Now, Mr. Speaker, I hear the Liberal Party on the other side talking, and they'll get their chance to debate this bill, and that's fine. But I'm really interested, Mr. Speaker, in the Liberal Party's position, because about 2 years ago, the finance critic, and as was pointed out by the Premier today, the member for Clare, were saying that we should have given tax relief at that time. And, Mr. Speaker, Hansard is the records of this establishment. And what it does, it records the spoken word. And the Liberal Party was on record of saying that we should have given tax relief at that time. And no matter what they can try to say, the written word is written and it's recorded of what they said. Now today, they have a new leader. And some time ago, he articulated many different positions on how he would handle the whole tax issue, whether he would give tax relief, whether he wouldn't give tax relief. He talked about whether or not he would give HST back and then whether he wouldn't give tax relief back. You know, the fact of the matter is he was having press conferences upon press conferences to clarify the previous press conference, and it's very confusing. Now, I know that the leader is a new member, and I know that there's a learning curve, and the learning curve is getting very long. But the fact of the matter is, lately, he has at least said one thing. He said that if he was elected Premier, which we know that won't happen, Mr. Speaker, the situation that he will roll back the changes that we have put forward. So what we're saying here, Mr. Speaker, is that he will campaign door to door in this province saying that he wants to increase taxes. That is the gospel truth, and nothing that you can say will change the fact. Now, the fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, as much as that sounds out of character or out of as frivolous or misunderstood, Mr. Speaker, the facts will speak for themselves, and the Liberal Party will go door to door on a tax up. But on the other issue, Mr. Speaker, the thing that concerns me the most is the lack of understanding by the Liberal Party of being competitive. Now, every single province in Canada, Mr. Speaker, has lower taxes except this province of Nova Scotia. Every single province in Canada, Mr. Speaker, whether or not they be Conservative governments, whether or not they be Liberal governments, or whether or not they be NDP governments. And the fact of the matter is the reason they have done that, and Hansard will speak for its word, is to be competitive. In Nova Scotia, we did not lower our taxes in the first 3 years of our mandate, and why is that, Mr. Speaker? Because we told Nova Scotians we would do that once we balanced the budget. We were as clear as we could, Mr. Speaker. So the issue is, why are we doing it now? Well, Mr. Speaker, the reason is that we balanced the budget last year. We balanced the budget again this year. So the fact of the matter is that have we done what we said we would do? And the answer is unequivocally yes, Mr. Speaker. Now, many people will say, that's refreshing, a government doing exactly what it said it would do. Well, the fact of the matter is, due to the guidance of our Premier, and Mr. Speaker, as Minister of Finance, you're only as good as your leader. And our whole cabinet and our whole caucus is true to that saying, Mr. Speaker. We've received the excellent leadership of Premier Ham, and he's guided our ship to from where we set out, Mr. Speaker, to where we said we would be, and that's exactly where we are today. Now, so, Mr. Speaker, this budget, though there are amendments and they're very specific, this budget overall and the act, the Financial Measures Act, is all about the direction that this government wants to take Nova Scotia, Mr. Speaker. And we are showing confidence in its people, Mr. Speaker. We're showing that if we put dollars back into working families' hands, Mr. Speaker, they will know what to do with it. Now, the Liberal Party especially may not trust those people to give them a refund and to know what to do with it. This party believes that they have common sense, and we believe in those Nova Scotians. And that is why we are putting forward the tax changes that we have implemented in this budget. Now, Mr. Speaker, on the other side, the rabbit traps of the member of Cape Breton South said, tell the people, Mr. Speaker, that's exactly what I'm doing right here, and that's what we said in our budget, Mr. Speaker. And we'll be prepared to go door to door and explain why our economy keeps to go. Now, Mr. Speaker, there are some who will say that everyone also...
Order, please. The honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid, and a point of order.
No, Mr. Speaker. I'm wondering if the minister would answer a question by telling Nova Scotians which ones won't qualify for any kind of tax break.
Order, please. The honourable Minister of Finance.
The fact of the matter is, I'm telling you who will get it. And the fact of the matter is, we will give it to people who paid income tax, Mr. Speaker. And now, Mr. Speaker, the Blue Book that the two opposition parties are so ready to stand up in the House and say, look what you promised. Well, what did we promise? We promised that taxpayers of Nova Scotia who pay income tax would get a reduction in their taxes. So what are we delivering? Exactly that, Mr. Speaker. Nothing less and nothing more. So for the members opposite to ask the question, Mr. Speaker, is redundant. Now, Mr. Speaker, in this budget, there are other provisions that are included that I just should go over. One of which is that we've included in this budget to stimulate the economy is a 3-year extension of the equity tax credit to December 31st of 2006. Mr. Speaker, this is an investment strategy used by governments. It's been in place for a long time. We've extended another 3 years. We think it's useful in raising equity and capital for new businesses. It's been a success in the past and will continue in the future. The other thing that we've implemented also is that we've raised the threshold from $30,000 total investment to $50,000. Now, Mr. Speaker, there is a tax credit of 30% of that amount. So 30% before of $30,000 was 9. Now it will be 30% of $50,000, which will be 15. And so what this will encourage is Nova Scotians to invest in businesses in their own communities. And for that is a good investment strategy, Mr. Speaker. It is one that we're very proud of. We've also done some extensions of other types of investment tools. Labor-sponsored venture capital credits has been extended another year. We've also extended the large corporation capital tax another 2 years to March 31st of 2006, as we indicated that we should be making a decision so people can make investments. The other thing that's included in these changes is one of the commitments that we made in our Blue Book was to increase the maximum family caregivers tax credit. We've done that in this budget, an additional $75%, Mr. Speaker, from $238 to $408. That was a specific promise that was included in our Blue Book, and as such, we've incorporated it into this bill. There are a number of other administrative and compliance amendments to the Income Tax Act that have been implemented to ensure that the income tax provisions are being followed. Some of them have been requested by the federal government and have been incorporated into the Act. There is another amendment, Mr. Speaker, within this Act which has a financial impact, and that is one regarding the Gaming Control Act. Mr. Speaker, there's been a lot of coverage over the last few days in regards to this, and I think it's a good chance for for us to also articulate the reasoning behind it. Mr. Speaker, one of the reasons that this Act is before the House and this provision, this amendment is before the House, is that the casino in Nova Scotia was put in place by the previous administration, the Liberal administration, and I believe the contract was signed in 1995, 1996. I don't have the provisions in front of me. And Mr. Speaker, what it incorporated within that contract, there was a clause in. I'm sorry. There was a clause included that stated that that allowed for the operator to terminate the contract if certain events were to happen. One of the events that was going to one of the events that could happen, Mr. Speaker, is that if a government authority did something to change an applicable law, and a government authority, Mr. Speaker, the interpretation of that is either federal or provincial or a municipal government, that would change the operator's ability to operate the casino without being impaired. I should point out, Mr. Speaker, some time ago, say 2 or 3 weeks ago, the casino notified Nova Scotia Gaming Corporation, which is the entity responsible for dealing with it on day-to-day matters, indicated that it was their opinion that the smoking bylaws would, in their opinion, materially impair their operations. Now, Mr. Speaker, that is putting the province on notice. I should indicate, Mr. Speaker, that is not a notice to terminate their contract. The fact of the matter is that they have indicated to government that they are concerned about it. Now, the other thing that happened, Mr. Speaker, the contract that was signed by the previous Liberal government talked about the fact that if there is a termination notice that is served upon the Nova Scotia Gaming Corporation and such the government, the provincial government, that there is a 30-day remedy window. In other words, the events has to be remedied within 30 days, or basically the contract would be breached. Now, so the issue is, Mr. Speaker, what does it mean if the contract is breached? And I think Nova Scotians should try to understand that. And the legal people are informing us that if it is, the contract, I can table the contract, and I think I will for the members here. Now, Mr. Speaker, I think it's important that I table it. Now, this is the Mr. Speaker.
Order, please. All member Sackville Cobequid.
I'm wondering, Mr. Speaker, if the minister will table the legal opinions.
To which he is
The
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Speaker, the opinion that I've received is from the Nova Scotia Gaming Corporation, and as such is there. Mr. Speaker, what I will table tonight for the members' edification, Mr. Speaker, is the operating contract and the casino option contract, and this is what the casino is governed by, and I think it's very important to table both these documents, and I shall do so that the members will have at their disposal all the information. And this is a public document that can be obtained by any
Order, please. The Honourable Member Sackville Cobequid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to be helpful, I want to let the minister know that has been tabled already, the contract, several times, and we've all got it. But what he hasn't agreed to do is table the legal opinion that he's gotten from the Gaming Corporation.
Order, please. Honourable Minister of Finance. Obviously, they've been tabled on a previous occasion, but I'm not sure if both have been or not. I know one was. They both have been. There's no need to table them again. Then we haven't. The House has enough copies, I think. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the trees have already been cut and the contracts are there, but if the members want to go through it again, I have copies and they can ask me for them. But I will point out, Mr. Speaker, that in regards of the contract is very specific. And the fact of the matter is, if an operating termination event occurs and we are served as a government, we have 30 days to remedy the situation, Mr. Speaker, or else the province is in a situation that we have to deal with the operator walking away. By walking away, what happens, Mr. Speaker? We have to purchase the casino, and the undepreciated value of the two casinos, both in Halifax and Cape Breton, Mr. Speaker, is $80 million, and that we would also have to pay the profits, Mr. Speaker, from the day that occurs to the end of the contract. Now, Mr. Speaker, other costs involved in that would also involve things such as termination of contracts with their employees, termination of contracts with suppliers, and the list goes on and on. So to say that this is a very small a small decision, Mr. Speaker. The fact of the matter is not. And for the members on the other side to say that this is not a serious situation, Mr. Speaker, that is not the case. For the Liberals to say that we should renegotiate a contract, Mr. Speaker, is 8 years or 7 years after they negotiated, Mr. Speaker, is ludicrous, Mr. Speaker. You're not in a situation that the casino is going to waive their rights. Now, Mr. Speaker, so why have we put this provision in the Act? And that is the question. What we have done, Mr. Speaker, is that we have allowed ourselves to be able to react within 30 days. And so the fact of the matter is that we have allowed ourselves to do that. Now you could say, well, why would you act in advance? Well, Mr. Speaker, this is permissive legislation. By passing this bill, will the bylaws that are in place for both municipalities be absolved or be removed? The answer is no. Mr. Speaker, if at a point in time that the province of Nova Scotia would get served with a notice to terminate the contract, we would have the ability within 30 days to make a decision. Now, Mr. Speaker, you are learned in this House because you've been sitting in that chair for almost 4 years. And one of the things that you've learned is that somehow getting a bill through the House in 30 days is not always easy. And the fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, especially when the House isn't sitting, we don't know when an event will happen. And to get any bill through, if the opposition, lo and behold, and forbid it whatever happened, were to filibuster a bill, you know, we've been known to be here for quite some length of time before it happens. So why did we put this provision in? What it allows, Mr. Speaker, is allows the province of Nova Scotia to act within that 30 days and to make a logical decision. Now, we've been asked by opposition, and I believe it was the New Democratic Party said, well, why don't you just go to a dispute resolution process? There is one mentioned in the very same contract that they don't want me to table. I don't know why they don't want me to table it, Mr. Speaker. But the fact of the matter is, I probably have a good idea why they don't want me to, but I won't in this instance.
Member Sackville, couldn't a point of order?
Mr. Speaker, the minister is suggesting that we don't want him to table it. And, Mr. Speaker, as you yourself correctly pointed out, the minister should know that it's already been tabled. We already have copies, so there's no need to kill any more trees. And so, Mr. Speaker, you know, the minister is misspeaking himself.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the trees have already been killed. I can't change that. But the issue is, Mr. Speaker, in regards of the termination, the dispute resolution process, which the NDP leader was saying, well, you don't need to have this bill because you could just go to a dispute resolution process. The fact of the matter is that if we went to a process to resolve a dispute as to whether or not something was material enough to terminate the contract, what the leader of the New Democratic Party and basically wants to ignore or has ignored is the fact of the matter is that it takes 90 to 100 days for that to occur, which is well, Mr. Speaker, after the 30-day window that we have to remedy it. So, Mr. Speaker, if we were to lose, if the province were to lose that dispute resolution mechanism, then we would have to buy the casino, Mr. Speaker. We would have to pay all the profits they would earn from this point to the end. We would also have, Mr. Speaker, we would also have to pay all their severance costs and so forth. Now, Mr. Speaker, the NDP party of Nova Scotia may not care about $100 or $120 million to the taxpayers, but Mr. Speaker, this party and this government does. Now, further to that, Mr. Speaker, as I articulated earlier on today, Mr. Speaker, if there was to be a termination notice served on government, and there very well may never be one served, and if there is not one served, Mr. Speaker, that is great, because all the bylaws that have been passed by whatever municipalities will stay in place. Mr. Speaker, it is not our intent to override them trivially, and we will not do so. But if for instance, there was one, Mr. Speaker, this would allow government, after it did the due diligence on the details that were there, to make a decision within 30 days. And if we were to do so, Mr. Speaker, let's say that the government were to do so, then at least we have dealt with them within 30 days. But we are still left subsequent to that to go to a dispute resolution after the fact, Mr. Speaker, and to get a determination. If the fact of the matter is that subsequent to that happening, and we had a dispute resolution decision that said that it was not a material breach of the contract, Mr. Speaker. It would permit government to revisit its position and to reverse its removal of the municipal bylaw. Mr. Speaker, this is a logical approach to a very difficult situation, Mr. Speaker. The opposition may say that $100 million is trivial, Mr. Speaker. As Minister of Finance, as a member of the Cabinet, as a member of this caucus, I cannot say that $100 million it cannot be better spent in schools, hospitals, and those in need, rather than paying it to a casino operator who has left the province, Mr. Speaker. The fact, Mr. Speaker, the fact of the matter is I have no intention as a member of a government to operate a casino. We have had too many bad successes or bad experiences with steel mills or gas and oil companies. Mr. Speaker, we worked hard to limit the exposure of the taxpayer to industries which cost the taxpayers of Nova Scotia hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Mr. Speaker, steel mill industries in this province didn't work. We gave it a try, Mr. Speaker. It came to a point in time that we had to move on. And because of that, we've also made some investments in industrial Cape Breton, which has transformed that economy, and we believe it will continue to grow, Mr. Speaker. In regards of gas and oil companies, Mr. Speaker, we as a government made a determination that we had no business staying in the gas and oil business. There were many people with their own money and in their own pockets, whatever, that could make those investments in that gas and oil, Mr. Speaker. And so what did we do? We sold NSRL and we received almost $400 million, Mr. Speaker, which went against the borrowing of this province. Now, we had the Liberal Party, first of all, saying that we shouldn't sell it, and they're concerned about the debt, Mr. Speaker. That $400 million went against the borrowing. We also have the Liberal Party in this House saying that we should have kept Sydney Steel going. Yeah. And the fact of the matter, I can find Hansard quotes here from the member for Cape Breton South and also the member for Cape Breton Over just recently saying that we should have kept Sydney Steel going. Absolutely. Now, the fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, as much as it's difficult to make changes in that area, we treated the workers of that establishment well, and we've moved on, and we're prepared to make investments in Cape Breton, and we will continue to do so to transform that economy into something which will have long-lasting jobs. Now, the fact is, Mr. Speaker, the fact of the matter is that we have made difficult decisions. In this one here, we have made changes in regards to the Gaming Control Act, which are logical, which will allow us to deal with the risks of a termination option by the casino, Mr. Speaker, and will also allow us subsequent to that to get a determination by a dispute resolution process that will allow us to get a ruling, and subsequent to that to make corrections if it's required. Nova Scotians will see that as being reasonable and well thought out and in the best interest of the province of Nova Scotia and its taxpayers, Mr. Speaker. And with those few comments, I'm more than proud to move the second reading of Bill 36.
Member for Halifax Fairview.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Financial Measures Act is an integral part of the budget and has to be considered in the context of the budget because it enacts the statutory changes that are made necessary as a result of the budget. And what the thread that runs through the minister's defense of this bill and this budget, it's about sustaining an illusion. It's about sustaining a series of illusions because almost every major claim that the government makes about this bill and this budget on closer examination turns out to be wrong, turns out to be incorrect. And the minister's panicked overreaction based on a ridiculous reading of the casino contract is only one example, perhaps the best example, of how when you look at the government's justifications, you realize that there's no substance to it. So what I'm going to do over the course of my remarks today and on Thursday is to go over some of the claims that the government has made about this bill and this budget and to show how each claim is an illusion. Now, the Tory election strategy depends on maintaining the illusion just as long as possible, or to be more precise, it depends on maintaining the illusion until after the election. And I guess part of our challenge here is to say, no, this is what is true, this is what is real. And what the Tories are trying to make Nova Scotians believe is nothing more than illusion. The first one, of which, the first major claim about the budget of which this bill is a part, is the claim that the budget is balanced. Now, the first thing I'd like to point out about that particular statement is that we still don't know, and won't until after the election, whether this government has balanced any budget, because that minister knows and this government knows that the public accounts for 0203 won't come out until the fall. Because so far, the only report we've had on the minister's progress is from the minister himself. And to say that he has a vested interest in what he reports is to understate the case. But when the Auditor General has a look at it, we'll know what the real story is, but we're not going to know that till the fall. So this government and this minister continues to try to build the illusion that the budget last year and this year are balanced. They'll say that it's balanced according to generally accepted accounting principles, but any way you look at it, there is more going out than there is coming in. And it would be fine for us to say, well, it's being spent on capital projects if there were any basis for that, but there isn't. Because capital dollars carry the same interest rate as every other kind of dollar, as an operating dollar. And that's the prize that we seem to have lost sight of. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. The only reason that the 0203 budget is balanced is because of a $35 million conjuring trick that this minister has pulled off based on an error in the federal tax sharing agreement. One year, he took $35 million off his books, and in the following year, he added it back on. Last year, he added it back on. Now, let's be very clear about this. Not one penny, not one nickel, not one dime changed hands between the province and the federal government. It is purely an accounting entry. And yet, this conjuring trick has allowed the minister to claim $35 million of revenue last year. I want to repeat that. Not one penny, not one nickel, not one dime changed hands, but the minister was able to claim, because of an accounting conjuring trick, an extra $35 million in revenue. And if the minister hadn't done that, his budget last year would be out of balance. The only reason that this year's budget is balanced, or the minister can claim it's balanced, is because of a similar conjuring trick with pension valuations. Now, when the Liberals were in office, or after they were thrown out of office by hundreds of thousands of Nova Scotians who were tired of liberal government, the Tory... I've said a lot that makes sense, Mr. Speaker. I've said a great deal that makes sense. But when that crowd came in, they changed the way the pensions were valued because they knew it would make the Liberals look bad. But this year, when it would make them look bad, when it was worth literally tens of millions of dollars on the accounts, they changed the pension valuation method again and said, oops, we didn't really mean it last time. We really think it's better to do it the other way. And that, Mr. Speaker, is the only reason that the minister can try and sustain the illusion that this year's budget is balanced. In the debate last year on the budget and the Financial Measures Act, I pointed out something that is as true today as it was then. And that is that what this government has specialized in is not in solving the deficit problem, it is in hiding the deficit. Hiding it. Hiding it where accountants don't look. And the best example is one that came up in public accounts a couple of weeks ago. And that is the amazing, the astounding, the astonishing statistic coming from the Department of Education itself, that our schools need $500 million worth of work just to bring them up to scratch. Not to make them good as new, but to bring them up to the level they would have been at if they'd been properly looked after during their life. Now, the reason that's such an astonishing fact is that if you have to consider we have 466 schools in Nova Scotia. So the cost of bringing 466 schools up to scratch is on average over $1 million each. So, Mr. Speaker, every single one of us can go back to our constituency, and every school we look at in our constituency, on average, needs $1 million worth of work. Every elementary school, every junior high school, every high school needs, on average, $1 million worth of work. That is astonishing. But it doesn't show up on the province's books. And so what has happened over the past number of years? The province has neglected school maintenance. And the Auditor General in this year's report has come out with a terrible indictment of the way that schools are maintained and how the system is set up to provide school boards with a disincentive to do the work. So the province starves the schools of money. The school boards don't spend the money on maintenance, because if the schools get bad enough, then the province will pick up the tab. But we've gotten to the point now where lack of school maintenance is a classroom issue. You can't say anymore, you got to spend the money in the classroom. The lack of school maintenance is a classroom issue. And what this government has done has gone from fire to fire, from crisis to crisis, not dealing with this in any kind of an organized way, but when things get so bad, when students and teachers get so sick, then they talk about extensive renovations or new schools, like at Halifax West. And I feel that I owe it to my predecessor to point out that in her time in this House, right from the time she was elected in 1996, 10 times, I counted 10 times, she raised the issue of Halifax West in this House and how sick it was. And it was only 3 or 4 years later, based on an effort of a very well-organized community group, that they finally got the government to listen. But that's the kind of place that the deficit is hiding. Okay, we haven't slayed the deficit dragon, it's only hiding. And that's something that this government needs to remember when it's trying to spin the illusion that the budget is balanced. It's not. It's not. And there are many other places that I could go to show where the deficit is hiding. And if any of the members on that side are interested in pursuing that line of thought, I would commend to them my speech on the Financial Measures Act last year. So let's look now at the second illusion, the second grand illusion underlying the Financial Measures Act and the budget of which it forms a part, and that is that the debt is under control. The debt's not under control. The debt's growing. More importantly, even than that, is the fact that the debt servicing cost is going up. It is not going down. And more important even than that is the fact that the percentage of our budget that is going on debt servicing is going not down, but up. According to the Department of Finance's own figures, next year and the year after, the percentage of our budget going to debt servicing will be higher than it is this year. So how can we maintain this illusion that somehow the debt's under control? It's not under control. It's heading in the wrong direction. But the Tories don't care. All they care about is maintaining the illusion till after the election. Maintaining their illusion. There's still no plan for debt control. Mysteriously, the minister did issue what he called a debt management plan a few months ago. But now, even more mysteriously, he says he's about to issue another one. Well, what happened to the first one? What was that document that the minister issued a few months ago called the Debt Management Plan, when he says just before the election he's about to issue another one? But it's all about maintaining the illusion. It's all about it's not about what's true, it's about what you can make people believe. And what this minister and this government want to do with the Financial Measures Act is make people believe that they have some plan to deal with the debt. But the truth, Mr. Speaker, is that this debt was created largely in the 1980s under John Buchanan. It wasn't my party that created the debt. It was the Conservative Party that created the debt. And 13 years after John Buchanan was airlifted off the roof of Province House into the Senate in Ottawa, we still don't have a government with a plan about how to deal with our debt. The debt that John Buchanan and our current Minister of Finance and the current government House Leader happily ran up when they were sitting around John Buchanan's cabinet table.
Don't forget the Liberals were bad too.
The Liberals tried to do something about it, and they paid the price for it. And John Savage paid the price for it, because I think it shouldn't be forgotten that John Savage wasn't defeated at the polls. John Savage was defeated by his party. He was thrown out by his own party before he could complete his first term. 1993, he was elected with an overwhelming majority. 4 years later, his own party threw him out. Now, Mr. Speaker, I believe that is probably the first time in Nova Scotia's history that a premier leading a majority government has been thrown out by his own party before the end of his first term. Mr. Speaker.
Order, please. Honourable Minister of Justice.
Yes, sir. Mr. Speaker, just a point of order. Which party leader was he talking about? The NDP leader, the former NDP leader, or was he talking about the Liberal leader? About being eaten by their own party?
It's not a point of order, but looking for some clarification. The honourable member for Halifax Fairview.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Justice has a practice of making light of serious issues, and if he wants to do that, that's fine. He can do that outside if he wants to, Mr. Speaker. He can do that in the members' lounge. He can do that back in his constituency. I'm not going to make light of a serious issue, Mr. Speaker. And that kind of comment from the Minister of Justice is part of the spinning of the illusion that we've actually got things under control here. It's making light of serious issues. And if he wants to do that, that's up to him. Mr. Speaker, in order to establish debt targets, we're going to need some kind of province-wide buy-in. We don't need our Minister of Finance weeks or days before an election issuing another debt management plan and saying, look, we've got it all solved. Because in order to do the hard work that's necessary in order to deal with our debt problem, we have to have province-wide buy-in. And a very good example of how this could work is what Robert Stanfield did after he was elected with the Voluntary Planning Board. Now, the Voluntary Planning Board is a very different creature today than it was, but when Robert Stanfield created it, what he did was he created province-wide buy-in among industry groups, labor groups, all kinds of stakeholder groups, so that everybody felt that they had a piece of the plan, that they had been heard, that they'd been listened to, that they had a stake in the implementation of the plan. And nothing less than that is what this province needs to do to deal with our debt. We can't go on spinning the illusion that the debt's under control, because it is not. It's growing. Debt servicing costs are growing. The percentage of our budget that goes to debt servicing is growing. What about the illusion that this is a tax cut budget? The government would like nothing better than if we and the Liberals and they talked about nothing but the tax cut, as if that's all this provincial budget was about. Over $5 billion of revenue and expenditure, and all they want us to talk about is one thing. Well, we didn't fall into their trap, but the Liberals did. But that's something the Liberals are going to have to answer for on the doorsteps. And frankly, Mr. Speaker, if they think they can go out onto the doorsteps of Clare or Dartmouth East or Cape Breton Nova or Glace Bay and sell a message of anti-tax cuts, I say fine, let them try. Let them try, that's up to them. They say it's a matter of great principle to them, that they think that they deserve that money more than the people do themselves. Mr. Speaker, if the Liberals want to do that, then I say let them try. But the illusion that I don't want this government to get away with is this is a tax cut budget, because the truth, Mr. Speaker, that in this budget and the Financial Measures Act, which is an integral part of this budget and contains many taxing measures, the truth is that the provinces take from all personal taxes is going, what direction, Mr. Speaker? Is it going down? No, it's going up. That at the end of this year, if the plan is followed through, this government will have taken more money out of the pockets of Nova Scotians than it's giving back. The total cost of the $155 refund is $40 million. Now, I know they say it's $68 million, but it's not really. The truth is it's $40 million because of bracket creep and the freezing of the personal exemptions and all those reasons why the government is actually taking more of that money back. So it's giving back $40 million just before the election, but it's actually taking in addition to that, another $74 million in personal taxes, taxes on them, on me, and on every one of my constituents, and on every one of their constituents. That's the illusion that they don't want burst before the election. This is not a tax cut budget. This is a taxing budget. This is a taxing budget. As a result of this budget, taxes on you and I, Mr. Speaker, and everybody we represent are going up. And not just personal taxes, Mr. Speaker, but also corporate taxes. Now, there's a number of corporate tax measures in the Financial Measures Act, but what I'm not sure that the members on that side realize is that corporate income taxes are going up very substantially, from about $200 million last year to $270 million this year. Corporate taxes are going up. They're not going down, they're not going sideways, they're going way up. Way, way, way up. And the main reason for that is the government has finally gotten around to eliminating a tax credit that wasn't doing its job. There was a manufacturer's tax credit that, according to the Department of Finance's own study, did not achieve its objectives. It represented a large giveaway of taxpayers' money without the corresponding benefit. And there were all kinds of complicated reasons for that, but nevertheless, it represented a giveaway of taxpayers' money without achieving the intended benefit. And that's not me saying that, that's the Department of Finance saying that. And so after giving away literally tens of millions of dollars, it's being phased out this year, and that's why corporate income taxes are going up from about $200 million to $270 million. This is not a tax cut budget. Corporate taxes are going up. The large corporation tax is being continued for another 2 years. Personal taxes are going up. And so the illusion that I don't want any of those members to go away here with is the illusion that you can go out onto the doorsteps of Nova Scotia and say this is a tax cut budget, because it's not. This is a taxing budget. This taxing budget is going to result in more money out of the pockets of our companies, more money out of the pockets of our constituents, Mr. Speaker. It's just another one of the illusions that the Tories want to spin just as long as it takes them to get through the election. The only problem with it is not true. It's not true. And I think Nova Scotians are becoming increasingly aware of the fact that it's not true, that as a result of this budget, they're going to be paying more, not less. The next illusion that the government spin doctors have planted in virtually every message you hear about the budget is the illusion that the economy is doing great. Now, When I first got into this business, one of the questions I asked somebody who'd been around a lot longer than I have is, how did John Buchanan do it? How did he run such a financially terrible government and yet keep getting reelected? Well, part of the reason was he was a nice guy. He was a friendly guy. And people say that there's probably been no better Main Street politician in Nova Scotia. And you know what? That's probably true. And it's still going on today. He still remembers everybody's birthday. He still remembers everybody's anniversary. And I see it in my own constituency. People that he hasn't represented for 15 years, he still remembers their birthdays and their anniversaries. And I say, good for him. He's a great fellow, you know. He's a great fellow, very friendly guy. As I said, probably one of the best Main Street politicians this province has ever seen. The problem is you took the party guy, the guy who was really good at backslapping, and you put him in charge of the money. That's the problem. It's like taking the chief party animal at a fraternity and putting him in charge of the money. And that is going to have predictable results, exactly the results it had on the balance sheet of Nova Scotia. Well, I asked this person, this more experienced person, how did he do it? And the answer, I thought, was very true, very revealing. The answer I got was that just before every election, he was able to create, by cranking up his PR machine, and that's all it was, there's nothing more to it than that, but by cranking up his PR machine, he was able to create a bubble of prosperity, a bubble of high hopes just before the election. And in the famous phrase, you know, prosperity is just around the corner. And of course, after the election, it would evaporate. But just before every election, he would make people believe that prosperity was just around the corner, and they would duly elect him with a majority government. But that's all it was. It was about what he could make people believe. And this government is doing exactly the same thing. Because the truth about job creation, here's the truth about job creation for all of you over there who very shortly are going to have to knock on the doorsteps, including the member for Digby is going to have to knock on the doorsteps and try and say to people who are unemployed, who are underemployed, that the economy is doing great. Because the truth is, unemployment is going up. Hello over there, everybody on the Conservative side. Unemployment is going up. But I don't see that in any of your news releases. I don't see you focusing on that in any of your statements. Unemployment is going up. And, Mr. Speaker, guess what? Nova Scotia's rate of job creation is below the national average. And I think we all know, we've all heard that, you know, we're creating jobs, and that's a great thing. But what they don't say in their news releases is that once again, we're not getting our fair share. Canada right now is a job creation machine. Mr. Speaker, Manitoba's unemployment rate last month dipped below 5%. Now, when that crowd gets this province's unemployment rate before 5%, then they're going to have something to crow about, Mr. Speaker. But it's not. Our unemployment rate is going up, and our rate of job creation is below the national average.
Order,
With
please.
that thought, Mr.
Order, please.
Speaker,
All member like to move adjournment debate.
with that thought, I have so much more to say, but I'll say it on Thursday. And with that thought, Mr. Speaker, I move the debate be adjourned.
Motion to adjourn debate. Is it agreed? All in favor say aye. 100 minded nay. The motion is carried. The Honourable Government House Leader.
The House Leader from the Liberal Caucus.
The Honourable Member for Clare on tomorrow's hours and orders of business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, tomorrow our caucus will be calling Resolution 429 and Resolution 382. And the House will sit between the hours of 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. Thank you.
Motion is the House adjourned until 2 p.m. tomorrow. Is it agreed? All those in favor say aye. 100 minded nay. Motion is carried. The House adjourned until 2 p.m. tomorrow.